Hey there, Andrew Grecki. We're getting into the fall. Hope your summer's been really great. And I wanted to get back on track with sharing information with you monthly to try to help your body have pain-free motion. So this month we're talking about foot pain, mainly because we're getting into the fall and there's a lot more people that are out walking around, running around in marathons and races. And we've seen it in the clinic, a lot of people coming in with foot pain. So I just wanted to give you some information. So right now in this video, what I'm talking about is, again, one of my main frustrations with how the medical system treats foot pain. And I've been there. Actually, last year I dealt with foot pain for a while and I went through the system and it's very discouraging. And so one of the things that I notice that happens almost every single time we see somebody with foot pain is that they were first given an orthotic. The foot doctors typically will say, oh, you need an orthotic. And to me, that, first of all, that throws a huge red flag because there are very few problems in the world where there's one solution. And so for everybody to get an orthotic is really just a guessing game. And 10% of the time it helps people and 90% of the time it doesn't. The problem, though, is that it's expensive. And as we're getting into a healthcare system where the responsibility is more on the patient, high deductibles, there's more costs that you have to pay for. It frustrates me because that's a one-size-fits-all solution that only works 10% of the time. And so I wanted to talk about what orthotics are designed to do and why they work sometimes and why most of the time they don't work. So there's a term called pronation. Pronation means that the foot flattens out. When you hit the ground, your foot flattens out. Okay, very normal. You can get your feet wet, you can step on the ground, and you can see when you hit the ground, your foot flattens out and you can see your whole foot. Now, some people flatten out more than others. Some people have high arches, some people have low arches. It really doesn't matter because that's who you are and how you were designed. Now, it's important, though, to recognize that when the foot flattens out, it's also connected to the leg bone, in this case, the tibia, okay? When the foot flattens out, it causes a chain reaction that happens up the leg. Mainly, the foot and the tibia turn inward, okay? So you can see my hand as the foot flattens out, turns in. All right, as it turns out, the foot raises off the ground. Let me see if I can get a better angle. When I flatten out and turn in, it goes down, and I turn out, it raises up. So when you put an orthotic in somebody's shoe, what you're saying is that you don't want this to happen anymore. You want a high arch to go in there and stop that foot from flattening out at all. Well, there's a huge problem with that. One of the problems, there's a lot of them, but the biggest problem is that not only does it make the foot not flatten out, which oftentimes can help somebody's arch not hurt, or their Achilles, or their big toe. But it's what you do to the rest of the system. So if I take away the foot flattening out, I also take away the leg bone from turning inward. If I do that and I follow that up to the hip, when your foot hits the ground, it has to absorb a lot of force. And there's actually studies to show that it's 3 to 5 times your body weight. So if I'm 200 pounds, that could be 600 pounds minimum that the foot has to absorb. The whole leg has to absorb when it hits into the ground. And when you look at the whole leg bone turning inward, that turning in of the femur is actually what activates the biggest muscle in the body to decelerate that loading is the glutes, your big glutes, your butt muscles. So that turning in when the foot hits the ground tells and triggers the glutes to say, hey, glutes, wake up. Let's decelerate that 600 pounds of force so that we don't have bones breaking and tendons ripping and inflammation happening. And so when you put the orthotic in somebody's shoe, what happens now is you take the glutes out of the equation and you're more likely to have knee pain, you're more likely to have low back pain because the force is getting shot up to the low back. And you have to really kind of scratch your head and say, well, gosh, if orthotics were the answer and everybody got them, wouldn't that make 90% of them better? And it doesn't. Only 10% of the time they get better. So to me, orthotics are overprescribed. They are used for some people with major foot deformities, but I would look elsewhere. I would look up the chain and say, well, wait a minute. If I know that the hips are going to help the plantar fascia and the Achilles tendon, maybe we should look at those. But that's, again, for another day. And really, that's what I'm offering you as a past client of Superiors. Only, we're offering 10 free assessments for the month of September. You're more than welcome to just reply back to this email or give me a call at the office and we'll set you up if the spots are open. There's only going to be 10. But just wanted to share with you a little frustration that I've had as a past patient going through the boot and the orthotics and the injections, and ultimately the problem is elsewhere. So hopefully you can be smarter than I was, and I hope you're doing well. Thanks for listening.